I've been making films for 30 years and I've been trying to get into San Sebastian and come to here, and so my Mary and Max came here, I think it was in some category, but I never made it. But it's one of the festivals, I think there's sort of 10 festivals that I've always wanted to get into, and of course there's Cannes and Sundance and Telluride, which I just came from. So I'm here finally, and I can't wait. We're having our screening tonight, and I'm really keen to see what a Spanish audience think of my film, because we only finished making the film 3 or 4 months ago, so the baby has just been born. So is it an ugly baby? Has it got all its fingers and toes? We'll find out tonight. The audience will never appreciate the blood, sweat and tears that has gone into the making of any film, but you know, stop motion is even slower and more expensive and complex. And this film wasn't meant to take 8 years. It was meant to take 3 years, but you know, COVID and all these other things got in the way. And you know, writing, I'm a very slow writer, so you know, I've probably only got 2 more films left, and then I'll be dead. You know, so you know. But my mother said good things take time, and it's quality, not quantity. So I'd rather make, you know, 6 good films than 12 bad films. Well, I'm very close to my mother. I'm her carer. She's now in her 80s, and I always say my mother is one of the funniest people I've ever met. But she doesn't know she's funny. She doesn't think she's funny at all. But you know, my mother's been in all my films in some capacity, but in this film, there's a lot of her because she is a collector. I wouldn't say a hoarder. She's a reformed hoarder, I suppose, but she loves collecting things. And for example, she had a whole lot of champagne glasses, but she doesn't drink champagne, and she's never had a dinner party. So why does she collect all these champagne glasses? So I was fascinated by not just her hoarding, but hoarding in general, and why do we all consume so much? Why do we collect all these things? And so I did a lot of reading, and I spoke to psychologists about the psychology of hoarding, and what I discovered was that a lot of hoarders have suffered a lot of trauma and loss in their lives. And so that sort of became the basis for Grace. And also, a friend of mine was born with a severe cleft palate, and she's now a very confident, extroverted, flamboyant person, but as a child she was teased and bullied, and so I wanted to tell her story as well as my mother's, and that became the basis for the film. You look back at Greek tragedies and comedy tragedy, and you know, the yin and yang and light and dark, humour, pathos, there's always this balance, and I'm trying to get that balance in all my screenplays, because I love that quote, without the dark the light has no meaning. And all our lives have positive moments and negative moments, and I just love dark comedy as well. So I love visual comedy. You mentioned Chaplin. I mean, I love Charlie Chaplin, but I also love Jerry Lewis and other, you know, visual comedians, because visual comedy is universal too, obviously, and so I try and make my films as dense as possible. There's a lot of tragedy in there, but there's a lot of comedy as well. There's a lot of lighter-hearted moments, and it's getting that balance, which is difficult. Yeah, Sarah Snook was really in my mind from the very early drafts of the screenplay, because she's such a fantastic actor. Obviously, she's a chameleon. She can do any voice, any sort of age. She's just also got this quietness about her voice, a sincerity, and her voice is very authentic. And when she came in, immediately she became Grace, and it was incredible to watch her just transform. And the way we recorded her is we put a little snail, we put Sylvia the snail near her, and I said, just look at Sylvia and I want you to just tell your life story to Sylvia the snail. You know, for an actor to look at a bit of plasticine for hours on end, you know, but she just did it. She just said, okay, and she just did this performance. So, and all the actors, Cody, Jackie Weaver, they all believed in their characters. They didn't have to be cartoon characters. They didn't have to put on these stupid voices. They just were the natural voices, and that brought a lot of authenticity and believability to the animation. There's artists like Francis Bacon and illustrators Ralph Steadman, cartoonist Michael Leunig, and then there's performers Barry Humphries. So there's a plethora, William Kentridge, and so I'm always absorbing art and seeing how artists use brushstrokes and sculptors, how they're sculpted. So I'm always constantly drawing upon other artists, but at the same time trying not to imitate or be derivative and to create my own aesthetic. And I find a lot of young artists, their work is becoming more and more a homage to other artists, and they're not creating their own identity. So I've always been very conscious of striving for originality and uniqueness and a look that is my own. But having said that, you look at my characters and you also see Jim Henson and the Muppets, and you see other, influences. So I'm very conscious that I'm not stealing, that I'm being, influenced. Yeah. Originally, I wanted the film to be black and white, but the investors said, no, we won't be able to sell it. I was like, yes, you will. But they convinced me to do colour. I said, all right, I'll do colour, but I'm not having green and I'm not having blue. There'll be no green or blue in the whole film. And they're like, oh, it's going to be really boring, brown. I said, no, brown is in a combination of all the colours of the rainbow mixed together. If you get all those colours, you get brown. And brown can be very warm, and so I put a lot of orange and red in there as well to warm it up. And the film has a coziness, which I wanted. So you feel it's a very comforting aesthetic. And and there's only 15 colours in the whole film. When we made the film, we went to a hardware shop and we went into the paint section, and I went, oh, that colour, and we made up all the tins of paint, and that's all we were allowed to use. So it has a very distinct colour palette. I love that film, Schindler's List, where Spielberg used the spot red. So I often do that as well, put in a little bit of red here and there to draw attention to certain objects and make them more obvious. I'm the production designer, so I do all the character design, the props, the sets, the characters, and so you get to play God. You're a megalomaniac, and I think that's why I love animation so much, is that we have so much creative control and so much creative freedom that our characters can look however we want them to look. So I spend just as much time designing the aesthetic and the production design to the film as I do writing, and I also do the storyboard. So the film's become very idiosyncratic of myself and very personal, and I think I'm an auteur in the truest sense, in that my films have a look that is distinctly my own, and that comes with a lot of work and many years of practice. And I'm also very obsessive, and so I draw every day, and if I'm not drawing, I feel incomplete. And so drawing is like my yoga and my meditation. So I even brought my pencils with me to San Sebastian, and when I get home tonight, I'll never quit drawing. It's like a drug.